Emerging leaders. I am so super excited that you are here with me on today. I am Danae Briggs. I am your leadership coach, and welcome to Three Successful Strategies for Emerging Leaders, designed for women of color. I want to make sure that you have an optimal experience today. So before we get started, I'd love for you to turn off everything in the background: email, Skype, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, anything that can distract you while you're on this webinar. And if it's necessary, go ahead and close the door. I will also ask that you please silence your phones. If you stay with me until the end, I have a nice little gift for you, and I want to share it with you. So hold on until the end so you can receive your special gift. You got questions? I've got answers. While the webinar is in progress, go ahead and type in your questions, and at the end of the webinar, I will address those questions and answer those questions for you. So I don't want you to forget what your questions are. So I encourage you to go ahead, type them in the chat box, and at the end, I will answer those for you. You are in the right place. You are a new leader in your industry, or perhaps you're in line for a promotion, or you're a lady that's aspiring to live a life that is purpose filled. Welcome to you today. Why did you show up today? To transform any fear that you have. You know, as a new emerging leader, what happens many times is that there's a lot of fear around being successful and being competent in your new position. So those kinds of fears, we want to address those. And this is one of the ways with this webinar, we talk about those kinds of things that can help you release the fears, or at least not let the fear cripple you, right? You want to confidently express yourself. You want to be able to ask questions, ask for help from your peers, your colleagues, your coworkers, your managers. And here's a really big one. You want to be able to speak up in meetings. There is a book called How Remarkable Women Lead. It's by Joanna and Susie. And they give an example of a woman that's sitting in a meeting. While she's sitting quietly, a man hijacks the conversation. And I remembered that I used to do that in meetings. I would sit quietly because I didn't believe that what I had to say was significant, that it was necessary, or I just waited for someone else to say it. And that's what happened. Somebody else hijacked the conversation. You also showed up today because, like all of us, we just want to have more fun, more freedom, and more peace in our life. Talked about why you showed up. Now I want to share with you why I do what I do. I am passionate about growing women leaders and pushing them into their greatness. Les Brown says it this way: you've got greatness within. And we do. All of us have greatness sitting inside of us right this second, right this moment. But sometimes we need a little nudge, we need a little push, we need a little help and encouragement, motivation to help us to bring that greatness that we have, to birth it out and to let the world see it and celebrate it. That's one of the things that I do. I also bring to the surface the perceptions that can hold women of color back. You know some of those. I bring them to the surface, help us to deal with it, help us not only to deal with it, but also to talk about how we can be effective even though some of those perceptions are there. I'm doing this today because when I started out in leadership, I did not have a mentor or a coach. I didn't have someone that believed in me. I didn't have someone that encouraged me. I didn't have someone that said, whatever you want to do in life, you can do it. My childhood wasn't kind. So as a result of that, I didn't have that encouragement to help me and to tell me that what I could do was possible. So we have a lot of external barriers. We also have internal barriers. Usually the internal barriers win. So it's those messages that we receive during our life, like, you're not good enough. What? You're going to do what? You can't do that. Oh, yeah, I know you have excelled in your education, but you need to go back and get some more. So it's always telling us one of two things: we're not good enough, or we need to do more. As a result of this webinar today, I had to think about, what do I want the ladies to become? What is, at the end of this webinar, what's the big takeaway? And that big takeaway is for you to have more confidence in yourself. That's my big takeaway for you today. Because having more confidence means that you show up without apology. You don't apologize for who you are. You don't apologize for what you do. And you don't have to defend who you are. Confidence also positions you as a stronger emerging leader. And being stronger and being confident, guess what you will not do? You will not tolerate unnecessary people, and you won't tolerate unnecessary comments. When we understand our value, when we understand our power, we won't give it away like pennies. There's a quote by Alice Walker that is phenomenal. And this is what it says: the most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. If you think, feel, believe that you don't have any power, yes, you will give it away like it's. I do what I do because I'm passionate about women becoming stronger leaders. But I also want you to know that everything that I will share today is based on my personal experience, on the job experience. It's not theory. Yes, I read a lot of books, but this is not from the books. This is from on the job experiences. And I have used every one of the three strategies that we'll talk about today. I have used them in my life. I continue to use them in my life. And I say that these are contributed to my success as being a leader today. I want us to, because I know we've all had things that we've done today, been a part of today. So I'd like us now to just be able to sit back and breathe. Release thinking about what you've already done, what you have to do after the webinar, what you have to do tomorrow, because guess what? The only moment, second we have is right now. We don't have yesterday. We don't have 5 minutes ago because it's in history. It's already gone. We don't have the next second because it hasn't happened. And we don't have tomorrow because it hasn't happened. So we're going to just do a little breathing to celebrate, to honor, to just be firm and seated in this present moment. So let's just inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Very good. Very good. Three successful strategies for emerging leaders designed for women of color. Our three strategies today will be self-awareness, accountability, and communication. Self-awareness. Everything starts with believing. in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, if you don't believe that you are worth it, no one else will. Self awareness is considered one of the most essential interpersonal competencies that an effective leader must possess. So, this is not one of those things that's optional. No, this is critical. You have to have it. Because what it will do, it will provide a clear understanding of who you are, your weaknesses. It'll let you know about your emotions, the red button that people can push sometimes at the wrong time, at the wrong way, on the wrong day, that emotions, and also your great emotions and your strength. So while self-awareness is most often thought of as an awareness of one's own strength, your weaknesses, your identity, and self-knowledge, it also includes character traits like your sense of purpose, your calling, your core values, your beliefs, motivations, desires, and the like. It is also the ability to accurately understand how others perceive you. Well, this is where I got into trouble as an emerging leader when I first started because my weakness was being arrogant. And I did a short video on an article that talked about humility versus arrogance. I laughed the entire time that I was reading the article because I was reflecting on my first leadership position as an emerging leader. I was terrible. Ladies, I was horrible. I didn't think that I was at that time, but yeah, it was pretty bad. So I didn't have a clear sense of myself, what I wanted, my challenges in life. I didn't have a vision. People say that, oh, I have very low self-esteem. No, no, I had zero. I had no self-esteem. I didn't know Danae. I wasn't aware of Danae. I wasn't aware of Danae's weaknesses, strengths, emotions, character traits, nothing. I had zero. So I inherit this team. And I remember at our first meeting, I walked into the conference room and I had everything together, all organized, and I started talking about what we were going to do, the changes we were going to make, the processes that we were going to enforce now. And I looked around the table and everyone had this look of shock on their face. Inside, I was delighted because I thought, wow, they are totally blown away and in shock by my brilliance. This is great. So I kept going on. About a week later, every team, every group has a spokesperson. The spokesperson approached me and basically said the team did not appreciate how I handled the meeting and that they were going to talk to management because they felt and believed I was not the right person for them. That bothered me. I asked if she could go back to the team and find out if we could do a lunch. And at the lunch, we could put everything on the table. She did. They agreed. We were doing a lunch. Thank God it was on a Friday because when I tell you they put everything on the table, they put everything on the table. I was not prepared for that. I held it down though. I didn't become emotional in the meeting. I held it down. I had to talk to myself and have these real conversations. Danae, don't do it. Just stay calm. Listen. Just listen. They want to tell you what they need. You need to listen. I go home on Friday and I am emotional about the whole thing, wondering did I do the right thing about accepting the position? And then I got myself together and said, okay, if this is what they want and this is the team that I am working with, and I don't want management to know that I am incompetent, then I need to incorporate some of the things that they've talked about. So I'm glad to say that later, it took some time, but we became a cohesive team. And one of those individuals actually is the spokesperson that we're still friends today. So self-awareness is considered one of the most essential interpersonal skills that you have. Self awareness will also build your confidence. I have noticed that many women aren't aware of their leadership capabilities or their potential to serve in leadership positions. Many women are less aware of their leadership abilities than their male counterparts. Cheryl, in the book Lean In, she addresses this and she says that male counterparts would not have a second thought about taking a risk to apply for a new position within a company or to leave an existing company to go join another organization. And that's so true. In my coaching for leadership coaching and in life coaching, when women are talking about a transformation or a change that they want to take place in their life, usually, and I've done this as well, we start with why we can't. Well, I can't do that because, and it would be okay, but because I have to do this, that's not going to work. Men, on the other hand, their question is, why wouldn't I do it? So, ladies, we want to build that self confidence so that we can understand more of who we are. And I think we know our capabilities and our talents, but again, it's having that someone to bring that greatness up and out of you. So, here's a question for you to ponder. Do you appreciate your own talents and impact? That's a question only you can answer. After this webinar, you go over your notes. When you ask yourself the questions, make sure that you're honest with yourself. And it's okay, whatever the answer is, because this is about you. And because you are in a position where you want to become greater, you want to be more self confident, you want to live a purpose filled life, it really works to your benefit that you're just honest with your answers. So, in a recap, self awareness is considered one of the most essential personal competencies that an effective leader must have. Again, this is not optional, this is one of those that is critical. Moving right along, our second strategy is accountability. It's a lot easier to assign blame than to hold yourself accountable if it's something negative. If it's something positive, we don't have a problem. Something negative, we're looking for a way out. The Business Insider, Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, and many other newspapers, they said that this was the most humble investor letter that they've ever read. And this happened in 2015. And Larry Robbins, he said, I believe I have a responsibility to work for free to recover the losses I've created for you. What happened was that Larry made some business financial decisions that caused his investors to lose not a little money, not a lot of money, but as a 3-year-old would say, a whole bunch, a lot of money. It was massive. So, in his effort to make up to his investors, Larry said that he would be opening a fund without management or performance fees. This is something that is unheard of in the hedge world for the hedge fund world. I'm sorry. So he opened up new fund without management and performance fees. He did what he said he was going to do, and this is a good example of character. This is also accountability. It's not only taking responsibility, but it's taking the next step to make it right. I've experienced this, and I'm sure you have. You go to a restaurant, maybe you're with a group of people, and you place your order. The conversation's going on, it's really good conversation. Somewhere along the line, somebody realizes, our food is taking a really long time. The manager comes to the table and says, I'm sorry that your food hasn't arrived yet. As soon as it's ready, there's somebody new in the kitchen and we'll get it out to you as soon as we can. They walk away. Take that same scenario, but here's a manager that comes to your table and says, I take full responsibility because your meal has been delayed. I'm sorry that this has happened, but because I want you to have a great experience with us and I want you to return, I am going to take 50% off of your total check. Everybody around the table is smiling, looking at each other, nodding, feeling really good about this. And they're wondering, wow, maybe we should order more. So you feel really good about the fact that the manager not only apologized that your meal was late, but they took the next step to make it right. So you share this experience that you got 50% off of your check and how great the manager was. Accountability as emerging leaders, this is our responsibility when we are taking on a new team. We've inherited a new team to us, or maybe it's a pre-existing team. But in those situations, a former manager will set up a meeting with you and they want to give you feedback on each one of the team members. While that background information is necessary, it's helpful, hopefully, and it is important. Um, when the manager has feedback about one particular team member, you have to ask yourself this question. Is the information that's given to me, does it reflect the former manager's personal opinion more than their professional judgment? That has happened to me. I worked with a manager. We were absolutely oil and water. We did not agree on anything. We tolerated each other, but we didn't agree. And it was because there was a personality clash. So sometimes there's a personality clash with the former manager and that team leader. But as the new emerging leader, it is your responsibility to be accountable to that leader, that team member by wiping the slate clean and dealing with them from a clear, new, fresh canvas. And that's what you want to do because this way you are holding yourself accountable to this team member by not interacting with them based on what you have received from the previous manager, but you want to start fresh. Just like you want someone to start fresh with you, you want to start fresh with your team members. Here's another question to ponder. Are you accountable to yourself? This one was a big one for me. I had to be honest, and sometimes I am not. But I'm aware of it now. I'm cognizant of it. So I do things to try to make it better. Because what I know is that if there are no consequences for fulfilling your commitment, are you really going to be held accountable? No. The reason I have an accountability partner for this business is because there are some aspects of this business I really don't like. I don't want to do it. I don't like doing it. It's like filing your taxes, right? I don't like to do this part of the business. I know that I have to do it. So I have an accountability partner. She holds me accountable for what I say I'm going to do. We meet every week. And when we meet, we know how to pull each other up, how to motivate each other. We also know how to ask the right questions. So if I've said that I'm going to do A, B, C, and when I check in with her, I've only done A and B, first question is going to be, Danae, so why didn't you do C? I'll give her an answer. And if the answer is not sufficient to her, she'll say, okay, let's talk about why you're procrastinating on this. She makes me accountable to it. So it's very helpful in your professional life, also in business, that you have an accountability partner. It's going to make a big difference in who you are and how you show up. So, as we do our recap on our strategy accountability, it's not only taking responsibility, it's taking the next step to make it right. Strategy number three, communication, communication. It's all around us every day, all day long. We communicate in our head. We hear other people communicating, always on, 24/7. Large numbers of organizational problems occur as a result of poor communication. Large numbers of relationship problems occur as a result of poor communication. Poor communication does not work professionally or personally. It just doesn't work. Understand that you can't assume that anyone knows where you're coming from if you don't tell them. Giving them the reason why. So if you are talking to your team, talking to your manager, on a personal level, you're talking to someone, giving them the reason why. For an example, if it's a change, if it's a transition, if it's something you're adding or taking away, you really want to upfront give that reason why, so that that person or that team can be more engaged to hear you and to understand you, and to also be more engaged and motivated to do what you're asking them to do. As an emerging leader, it is not about you when we're talking about communication. The message is 100% about meeting the needs and the expectations of those you're communicating with. It is not about your own agenda. It doesn't mean that your agenda is not important, but that's not the foremost reason that you're communicating, because you want to make sure your agenda is met. Focusing on contributing more than receiving. In other words, giving more than you are receiving. When you take this approach, you're going to accomplish a lot more and you're going to meet your goals. Even though I know this seems counterintuitive, because I'm saying to intensely focus on the other party's wants, needs, desires, and you'll learn more, it really does happen. I was working with Robert Half, and myself and a seasoned professional, we were going on a client visit. He says to me as we enter the elevator, watch me, and I'm going to get us the contract at a full fee. Well, in my mind, I was really feeling some kind of way about this, because I'm thinking, I'm a successful salesperson. Why are you telling me to allow you to do the whole sales presentation? So, because we were approaching rapidly the client, the client's office, I said to myself, Danae, simmer down, just bring it down. Don't talk about this after the client visit is finished. On the way back to the office, right now, shift and focus. Okay, fine. We arrive at the client's office. We're sitting down um, in the chair, and the seasoned sales professional sees golf balls on the table, on his desk, rather. So he starts this robust conversation with the CEO about the game of golf, about beautiful golf courses, and everything about golf. I'm sitting there and I'm smiling and nodding, because at the time I didn't know anything about golf. The CEO says, I know you've come here for my business. I'm going to give it to you. What do I need to do? This is where I step in and I present what we have. I talk about how we work, how we present our candidates, what the fee is. He signs it, agrees to the 35%. I'm in shock. Myself and the sales professional, seasoned sales professional, walk out and we're on our way back to the office. And I said, wow, that was amazing. That was incredible. I mean, he signed 35% without a blink. He said, yeah, you know why? And I said, no. He said, because I allowed him to talk about himself. I said, okay. He said, in his position as a CEO, people bombard him with their issues, their problems, situations, fires, but nobody walks into his office, sends an email, picks up the phone to call him to say, oh, I just want to find out how you're doing. He doesn't have an opportunity to talk about himself. I allowed him to not only talk about himself, but something that he loves. So I said, I get it. That was such a teachable moment for me. I still use that today. So that's a great example of when I say it seems like it's counterintuitive when we intensely focus on the other person's wants, when we focused on that CEO's wants. Because if I walked in with my own personal agenda, which was to talk about our service, talk about the fee, get him to sign, I doubt that we would have had the contract. I know we wouldn't have received the contract at a 35% full fee. So when you're communicating, understand it is not about you. You want to communicate with the willingness to discuss with an open mind. When we do this with an open mind, we learn. Because remember that it's not the opinion that matters, but rather everybody has their own personal truth. You have your truth, I have my truth. So when we establish open dialogue with people, it helps to create a platform for diversity of thought. It is not significant that we always go into a conversation telling others what should be done versus establishing a platform for diversity of thought and collaboration. So, this is where we talk about authentic communication. As a new leader, sometimes in your industry, you see cookie cutters. That could be the way they dress and the way they speak, the way they do basically everything because it seems to be the accepted norm. But as a new emerging leader, as a woman of color, you want to make sure that everything you do represents the true, authentic you. You're not a cookie cutter. So when you're communicating, you want to communicate with a style that is authentic to you. This is how you communicate. Authentic communication is it's not always easy, especially when you have to have one of those deep, serious, hard conversations. It's not always easy, but it is the basis for a successful relationship. It's the basis for a successful relationship, whether that's personal or whether that's business. It's also really an important aspect of our growth as humans because the more that you have the ability and take the opportunity, and it really is our choice, you take the opportunity to authentically be present in what you do, you learn so much about yourself. So when you open your conversations up or you have the atmosphere in your mind of a conversation where you create a platform of diversity and collaboration, you learn about the other person, but you learn so much more about yourself, which helps you to become a greater leader and a greater person. In a nutshell, authenticity is all about you being you. There is a book And the title is Be Yourself Because Everyone Else Is Taken. So you want to have the ability to listen, understanding that listening is as important as speaking. Start with fostering an environment that encourages other views. So an open and transparent dialogue, this is the premise because you want to make sure that everybody is at the table and everybody at the table that they have a point of view. It will help you professionally, it will help you personally because communication, whether it's verbal or nonverbal, that's the only way people can understand what we're saying, what we're doing, and it is very, very powerful. So when you allow the person, the group, the team at the table to have their point of view, again, this is where you're going to learn a lot about yourself and you'll also understand their perspective and why they think the way they think. As we wrap up this particular strategy, the communication piece, this is what I want you to remember. Remember to always have a willingness to discuss with an open mind. So give me a second. I am going to go into the chat room and see if we have any questions. I don't see that we have any question at this time, so that's okay. Looks like we have a very shy group. That's fine, not a problem. I said to you in the beginning, you got questions, I got answers. So I don't see any answers or questions rather in our chat room at this time. So I am just going to continue and move right along. As my appreciation to you for being on this webinar today, taking out time on your Sunday to be with me, I am so grateful. I am extremely grateful to you. So I am offering a free 1-hour leadership coaching session that you'll have with me, and this will include a personal assessment. And that personal assessment, it doesn't have to be just about leadership. I know that as we talked about in our first strategy, self-awareness is a really big piece of who you are. So understand it doesn't have to be just about your leadership. If you want to talk about your life and how you want to live a more purpose-filled life, we can talk about that as well. But this is your 1-hour time with me. And you will receive the sign-up email shortly after this webinar. So complete that information and it gives you options for dates and times when you'd like me to make that call with you and we'll talk. So I am looking forward to speaking with you and helping you to become more confident. I am Danae Briggs, your leadership coach, helping you to discover you. Have a great day. Thank you again for joining.